All right, let's begin. So the first thing that we're going to approach with color theory is understanding the color spectrum. Let's take a look at the color wheel that is in front of us right now. The color wheel provides a visual representation of which colors work well together. Right now, as you can see, there are about 12 colors on our color wheel, but in theory, you can actually expand this to include several different kinds of shades. The primary colors on our color wheel are red, blue, and yellow, and cannot be made from mixing any other colors together. Now our secondary colors are orange, purple, and green. These can be made by mixing the primary colors together. And finally, we have our tertiary colors. These 6 shades can be made from mixing together your primary and secondary colors. These colors include yellow-orange, red-orange, red-purple, blue-green, and green-yellow. Now, what we just discussed here was what I would call a traditional color wheel. But in this day and age, especially now when so many things are digital, I want to talk about the Photoshop color wheel, which is just a little different. The primary colors in this case are red, green, and blue, or more commonly referred to as RGB. This is based on the way that light mixes on a computer screen or a television screen, and we call this an additive color model. The reason for this is if you were to project the red, green, and blue light together, you actually yield a white light, as you can see in the example I have on our screen. Now, the RGB color model works great if you want to make digital illustrations for video games or for television and film, but it doesn't necessarily translate well when you print it. And this is because the color model that is used for printing presses is actually known as Cmyk, or cyan, magenta, yellow, and key color. The way the ink works for printers and the way colors are mixed are much different than if we were to use it with actual acrylic pigment, because paint kind of works differently than printer ink. Otherwise, we would have used the traditional color wheel, but since printers use a whole different ink system, we use Cmyk for this. And Cmyk is known as the subtractive color model, because if you were to mix all these 3 colors together, cyan, magenta, and yellow, you actually get black, as you can see on the example I've provided. That's why it is very important, if you are making illustrations digitally on Photoshop, that you make sure that the colors that you're using are also going to be printer friendly, because sometimes you will paint the most beautiful illustration digitally, which will look wonderful, but those colors won't necessarily translate well into printer ink, so you must keep that in mind. Lucky for us, also, Photoshop does have the option to provide you with swatches that are printer friendly, and also if you do select a color, it actually has a little exclamation point next to your color wheel, but we will go more into that later on in the course. I know that this might sound very overwhelming, but just remember that the traditional color wheel is better for paints, like traditional paints, like acrylic or even gouache, and RGB is for what you can use when you're painting on your screen, and Cmyk will be for when you print what's on your screen out on paper, so it's primarily for your printer ink. Now that we have covered the basics of our color wheel, let's focus on hue, tint, shades, and tones. Now, the colors that you see in front of you, they are simply called colors on our color wheel, but the more technical term for color would be hue. Basically, a hue is just a color on your color wheel. Now, a tint is created when you add white to a hue. This basically lightens and desaturates that color, and it makes it not as intense. Now, a shade is created when you add black to any hue, and what happens is you end up getting a more intense and much darker color. This also makes your hue more desaturated as well. And finally, a tone is created when you add black and white to your hue, or even gray. And depending on how much white you add or black you add, this will vary, and it'll make your tone either more intense or either lighter, but it will make it desaturated. Now that we've covered the basics of color theory, let's move on to the next step, color schemes. A color scheme is an arrangement of colors based upon the color wheel that you see in front of you. Warm colors are vivid, energetic, and advance in space. And cool colors give the impression of calm and create a soothing feeling within you. A harmony of these cool and warm colors together can create the perfect color scheme for your illustration or your painting. Now let's discuss the different kinds of color schemes that you can attempt. The first one is the complementary color scheme. It's basically colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel, and it works best when you have a warm color versus a cool color. The next color scheme is the tetradatic or rectangle color scheme. What this is you are using 4 colors that are arranged in 2 complementary pairs. And this scheme works best if you let one color be more dominant and intense. And just remember to keep a good balance between these warm and cool colors. And next we have the square color scheme. This is very similar to the rectangle one, but all the 4 colors are evenly spaced around the color wheel. Next we have the split complementary color scheme, which is very similar to the complementary color scheme. Once you select your base color, look to its complement, but instead of selecting that actual one, select the colors next to it. This is a favorite color scheme for beginners to usually use because it's hard to mess up. Now next we have the triad color scheme. The triadic color scheme uses colors that are evenly spaced around the color wheel. Since all the colors right now tend to be very dominant when using this scheme, just be sure to maintain a good balance. And finally, we have the analogous color scheme. This is a combination of 3 colors that are grouped together on the color wheel. This is one of my personal favorite color schemes. I love using it. It can really create very harmonious paintings, but be careful because your stuff can look monochromatic, so be sure to select colors that can kind of complement each other more rather than maybe all cool colors together or all warm colors together. And that's it. These are the basics on understanding color schemes. Now in the next video, I'm going to show you how to take everything that you have learned here and apply it to your own designs.